Lila had never been the most graceful person, but the digital world was where she truly excelled. She could navigate complex virtual landscapes with the finesse of a seasoned explorer, or, more accurately, the reckless abandon of someone who didn't quite understand the concept of personal space in a crowded arcade. As she jostled her way through the neon-lit chaos of the latest VR gaming lounge, she managed to bump into not just one but 3 different avatars, each of them morphing into glitchy caricatures for a few moments before returning to their pixelated selves. Sorry. Watch where you're going, Lila, she chided herself, chuckling at her own clumsiness. She was so focused on the shiny holographic displays and the booming soundtracks that accompanied each game that she nearly missed the most important part of her evening, the launch of a new avatar technology that promised to let users visit their virtual hometowns. With an exaggerated leap, she bounded toward a booth labeled Homeward Bound VR. The marketing was flashy, bright colors and catchy phrases that promised nostalgia and self-discovery. Lila's heart raced at the thought of reconnecting with her roots. She hadn't been back to her hometown in years, not since the great high school debacle where she accidentally set off a confetti cannon in the middle of a serious speech competition. That day had been etched in her memory as a perfect example of how not to handle social situations. The booth operator, a cheerful woman with a headset and an overly bright smile, handed Lila a VR headset, insisting, "You're going to love it. Just think of all the memories." With a smirk and a flip of her hair, Lila thought, what could possibly go wrong? The last time she felt nostalgic, it involved a half-eaten slice of cake and a regrettable karaoke rendition of "I Will Survive." She slipped the headset on, and the world melted away in a burst of pixels and sound. A moment later, Lila found herself standing in the middle of a fantastically vibrant version of her hometown, everything hyper-realistic and exaggeratedly cheerful. The trees were a little too green, the sky a little too blue, and every building seemed to radiate warmth and happiness, like something out of a children's book. At first, she was enchanted, twirling in place to take it all in. But then she noticed something strange. The avatars around her were not nearly as vibrant as their surroundings. They moved with mechanical precision, their expressions fixed in smiles that felt more like masks than genuine joy. "Wow, they're really committed to this perfect town aesthetic," Lila muttered, adjusting her virtual hair. She was about to poke fun at the absurdity when she bumped into Max. "Hey, watch it," he said, though the words came out with an oddly cheerful tone. Lila looked up to see a tall, lanky avatar with cartoonishly large glasses and an exaggerated smile. His eyes sparkled with mischief. "Sorry. I thought I was in a dream, and I didn't expect to run into." She paused. "Wait, are you Max? From the library?" He sighed dramatically. Yes, it's me. I know. I'm as surprised to see you as you are to see me, but honestly, I'm more of a shadow than a specter around here." Lila laughed. "You're even nerdier in virtual form." "Welcome to my life," he quipped back, adjusting his glasses in an exaggerated manner. "But seriously, you might want to tread carefully. The folks around here are trapped in their own little perfect bubbles." As they walked through the town square, the humorous contrast between the town's vibrant design and the avatar's flat expressions grew more pronounced. Lila watched as one avatar, a middle-aged woman with a permanent smile, attempted to engage another in conversation, only for the latter to respond with a programmed line about the weather, followed by a mechanical nod. "Okay, this is getting weird," Lila said, her brows knitting together. "Why are they all so robotic?" Max shrugged, gesturing toward a nearby fountain that sparkled in the sunlight. "It's a little too cheerful here, don't you think?" They're stuck in these idealized versions of themselves, afraid to step out of line or show any real emotion. A thought struck Lila like a stray pixel. What if we could help them? I mean, if we could change their settings, maybe they could find a more authentic version of themselves. Max raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Are you serious? You'd really want to do that? Why not? Let's give them a taste of reality. It could be fun. Lila's eyes glinted with mischief, the gears of her imagination whirring to life. Fun? Or chaos? Max asked, half laughing, half concerned. Either way, I'm in, Lila declared, determination flooding her veins. Let's break the mold. The next few days were a whirlwind of experimentation and hilarity. Lila and Max set to work trying to alter the avatar settings, diving deep into the user interface that was surprisingly complex for a system designed for such simplicity. As they fiddled with the parameters, they could hear the avatars around them sputtering into existence, morphing in ways that were sometimes unexpected, and often downright hilarious. Okay, let's try this, Lila said, her fingers flying over the virtual keyboard. What if we tweak this avatar's personality to be a little more eccentric? With a flourish, she hit the enter key, and the avatar, a once mild-mannered librarian, suddenly burst into a theatrical soliloquy about the importance of library fines. My dear patrons, it is not just a monetary issue. It is a matter of principle, the librarian exclaimed, waving her arms wildly as nearby avatars gawked at her. Max doubled over with laughter. You've turned her into a Shakespearean actress. What's next, a tap-dancing postman? Don't tempt me. Lila shot back, grinning. As they continued their mission, they encountered an avatar that was once a shy teenage boy. With a simple adjustment to his settings, he transformed into an outrageous stand-up comedian, delivering punchlines that had the crowd in stitches. Lila couldn't help but think how wonderfully freeing it was to see these avatars step outside their previously confined selves, yet, for every hilarious success, there were moments of unexpected poignancy. One avatar, a sweet old man who had once been a local baker, suddenly displayed a vulnerability that took them both by surprise. Instead of his usual cheerful banter, he shared a touching story about his late wife, lamenting how he had lost touch with what brought him joy after her passing. I didn't think I could feel this way again, he said, his voice trembling. Lila felt a pang of empathy. Sometimes, we just need a little nudge to reconnect with what really matters. The town began to buzz with life as avatars shared their stories, growing closer in unexpected ways. A former cheerleader started a dance party with a group of previously stoic avatars who were now breaking into spontaneous routines, each move full of joy and freedom. Lila watched, her heart swelling at the sight. Look at them. They're finally living. Max exclaimed, his eyes shining. Lila turned to him, a newfound sense of purpose igniting within her. But what happens when they realize this is just a game? What will they do when they have to return to reality? Max looked thoughtful. That's the tricky part. It's one thing to let them express themselves here, but they still have to face the real world afterward. And just when they thought things couldn't get any better, disaster struck. A flicker in the digital atmosphere sent a shiver through the program, and the avatars began to glitch, their bright colors fading into dull hues. Oh, Lila said, her heart racing. What's happening? I think we hit a snag, Max replied, eyes wide. The system's malfunctioning. If we don't fix this, they'll revert to their original settings. What do we do? Max's expression turned serious, a far cry from the carefree banter they'd shared. We need to stabilize the system. If we can get to the main control panel, we might be able to stop the reset. As they rushed through the town, Lila felt a swell of urgency. They couldn't let the avatars lose their newfound identities. These beings, once trapped in rigid molds, had started to embrace their true selves, and she couldn't let it slip away. But just as they reached the main control panel, a wave of chaos swept through the virtual town, avatars spinning and shaking as if caught in a storm. "Hold on!" Lila shouted, desperately trying to keep her balance as the digital landscape twisted around her. In that moment of chaos, she realized something profound. The fight for authenticity wasn't just about the avatars, it was a fight for everyone. This was about self-acceptance, breaking free from the chains of expectation. And as she fumbled with the controls, Lila knew she was ready to stand up for what was right, not just for herself, but for all those who had ever felt trapped in their own lives. Lila steadied herself against the tumultuous shifts of the virtual landscape, the control panel flickering with urgent warning lights. With Max at her side, she could feel the weight of their mission pressing down, every second crucial to keep the avatars from reverting to their old, hollow selves. "Just think. You can do this!" Lila shouted, her voice rising above the digital storm. She tapped at the control panel, each keystroke sending ripples of energy through the code. "If we can just stabilize their settings, they won't lose the progress they've made." Max nodded, his determination evident. "Right. We need to recalibrate the avatar profiles before they reset. Let's prioritize those who've shown the most growth." With a determined focus, Lila navigated the chaotic interface, her fingers dancing over the keys. "Okay, here's the profile for the librarian. Let's keep her Shakespearean flair but tone it down so she doesn't completely lose it." She quickly adjusted the settings, watching as the librarian avatar settled into a more balanced persona, still eccentric but grounded. "Next." Max pointed at the baker, who had just begun to open up about his past. "We can't lose him now." Lila hastily made the adjustments, her heart racing as the avatar transformed back into the cheerful but vulnerable man they had come to know. Each success filled her with hope, yet the chaos intensified around them. Avatars spun erratically, their laughter turning into panicked yells as the system began to fragment. "Come on. We need to move faster," she urged, feeling the pressure build. Each moment was a frantic balancing act, a testament to how fragile these new identities were. The townspeople, now animated and full of life, could sense the danger. A group of avatars, led by the former cheerleader, rallied together, forming a protective circle around Lila and Max. "We're not going back," she declared, determination shining in her eyes. "We've finally found ourselves. We won't let this end." Lila grinned, feeling the warmth of camaraderie radiate from the avatars. Their shared resolve fueled her, pushing her to work faster. With each successful adjustment, she felt a surge of pride. This wasn't just about changing avatars, it was about empowering them to embrace their real selves. "Almost there," she shouted, her fingers flying over the keys as she dove into the intricate network of codes, rewriting lines with newfound zeal. She could sense the connection between the avatars growing stronger, their identities intertwining in a way that transcended the virtual world. But then, just as they began to stabilize the avatars, a sudden blast of static echoed through the town, and the control panel flickered ominously. The colors of the digital landscape began to dull, and for a terrifying moment, Lila feared everything they had fought for would disappear. "Lila, the main core is about to overload," Max shouted, his voice tinged with panic. "We need to redirect the energy." "Redirect? How?" she asked, desperation creeping in. "Think. We have to channel their energy, their connections, into the core. It's the only way to stabilize the system. Lila's mind raced, recalling the connections they had witnessed among the avatars. Okay. Everyone, gather around, she called, her voice steady despite the urgency. You need to focus on what makes you feel alive. Channel your experiences, your emotions, everything that brought you here. One by one, the avatars began to share their stories, their voices intertwining in a beautiful tapestry of emotion. The librarian recounted her transformation into a passionate performer, while the baker spoke of rediscovering joy in baking again. Each tale resonated, filling the air with warmth and a sense of belonging. Lila felt the energy shift. Yes. Keep going, she encouraged, her heart swelling with pride. Let it flow. As they channeled their collective experiences into the core, the energy surged, vibrant colors swirling around them like a tidal wave. Lila and Max grabbed onto the control panel, working in tandem to guide the energy into the system. The panel shook violently as the avatar's stories merged with the code, a bright light erupting from the core. Lila could feel it, the raw power of connection and authenticity breaking through the barriers of the digital world. Now, she yelled, her voice barely audible over the roar. With a final keystroke, she sent the energy spiraling into the heart of the system. The screen flickered wildly, and for a brief moment, Lila felt herself suspended in a whirlwind of color and sound, a kaleidoscope of life unfolding before her eyes. Then, just as suddenly as it began, everything settled. The chaos receded, leaving a calm stillness in its wake. The colors around them shimmered softly, as if the town itself was breathing a sigh of relief. Lila blinked, taking in the sight. The avatars stood before her, vibrant and alive, their expressions now genuine reflections of who they had become. You did it! Max exclaimed, his voice laced with disbelief. They're free. The former cheerleader grabbed Lila's hands, eyes shining. We're ourselves again. Thank you. One by one, the avatars gathered around, their gratitude palpable. The baker stepped forward, a warm smile breaking across his face. You showed us how to feel again. We'll carry this with us, even when we return to the real world. Lila felt a lump in her throat. I just helped you see who you already were. But as the avatars rejoiced, Lila's heart began to weigh heavily. What will happen now? When we log off? Max stepped beside her, understanding dawning in his eyes. They've experienced something real. They'll take these changes with them. Maybe they'll inspire others to embrace their true selves, too. The realization settled in Lila's heart like a comforting blanket. She had set out to change the avatars, but perhaps, in the process, she had discovered something about herself. Maybe it was time for her to face her own fears, to reconnect with her own past. As the digital sunset painted the virtual sky in hues of orange and pink, Lila felt a warmth spreading through her. The avatars began to fade, their forms shimmering like the last rays of sun before nightfall. Remember, you're not alone, she called out, her voice echoing in the stillness. Thank you, Lila. We'll remember, came the chorus of voices, each one resonating with sincerity. When the last avatar disappeared, Lila found herself back in the arcade, the headset slipping from her face as the real world rushed back in. She blinked against the harsh fluorescent lights, her heart still racing. Max stood beside her, a grin plastered across his face. Did you see that? We changed them. You changed them, he said, excitement bubbling over. I can't believe it, she replied, her mind still spinning from the experience. But a new resolve was forming within her. I need to go back. I need to face my own hometown. Max nodded, a knowing look in his eyes. Then let's do it. Together. As they left the arcade, Lila felt a sense of purpose igniting within her. She wasn't just returning to her hometown, she was ready to reclaim her story, to confront the awkwardness of her past with the lessons she had learned. The virtual world had shown her that authenticity and connection were powerful forces, and it was time to bring that spirit back into her real life. The sunlight warmed her face as they stepped outside, and Lila took a deep breath, feeling invigorated. The world around her buzzed with life, just as the virtual town had. With each step, she could feel the weight of her fears lifting, replaced by a growing excitement for what lay ahead. And as she turned to Max, the laughter bubbling between them, Lila realized that perhaps the greatest adventure wasn't in a virtual world but right there in the unpredictable, messy reality of life. With a newfound determination, she set off toward her hometown, ready to embrace whatever came next, knowing that she was no longer just a character in a story, but the author of her own. The end.